My staircase of knowledge. I was very secluded from the world around me. I grew up in a small town where topics such as gender, disability, race, the class system, and what it means to be a Canadian was rarely talked about or even acknowledged. In our textbook, Is Everyone Really Equal?, they explain someone's knowledge as a fish immersed in water from the moment of consciousness and thus cannot know that it is separate from the water. We too, from birth, are immersed in deep water of our culture. This quote exemplifies how little I knew outside of the four walls I grew up in. I was shocked by how little education I knew about the country I live in. In the second writing the self-assignment, our class was asked to write about what being a Canadian meant to you. In my story, I talked about our family farm. After submitting my assignment, I soon came to the realization that the only reason my family had so much opportunity on this land was because the land was taken from the First Nations communities. Understanding this newfound knowledge really made me think what it actually means to be a true Canadian. I now understand that being Canadian means many different things for the First Nation communities. Celebrating Canada's 150th year had a very different meaning to the First Nations communities. The required article, What Does Canada 150 Mean for Indigenous Communities? Anna Marie Tremonte states the 150th reflects the colonial history of Canada and the historical trauma that Indigenous people face. For many of Canadians, the 150th birthday was merely a celebration, but for the Indigenous communities it was seen as a heartbreak, a memory of the terrible past that happened to their communities. I now understand that Canada is not the land of the free for all. Canada means many different things in regards to who you are. The topic on race and white privilege was a concept that took me a long time to grasp. Before this course, I looked at myself as a non-racist white female that believes every human being is equal. I quickly learned this was not the case. For one thing, I had the definition of a racist all wrong. I understood that if you spoke offensively towards someone of a different race, you were considered a racist person. When Katia told us that all white people were racist, I was appalled. I soon after understood what she meant. In our class text, Is Everyone Really Equal?, racism refers to white racial prejudice and discrimination supported by institutional power and authority, used to the advantage of whites and the disadvantage of peoples of color. I now understand that any person can be prejudiced towards another. However, racism is linked with institutional power, making everyone with white privilege automatically racist. It took me a long time to accept the term white privilege. After doing the required readings and partaking in discussions in class, I have come to the realization that white privilege helps me in my everyday life, and I would not be the person I am today without the help of white privilege. I was always told if you work hard enough, you will go far in life. I found myself always confused to why poor people didn't just work hard enough to get ahead. In the article, Debunking the Pull Yourself Up by Your Bootstraps myth, Carmen Rio states, even when poor people are working hard, putting themselves through educational programs, and seeking help to lift themselves up, our culture continues to blame them for their lack of capital. I now understand that pull yourself up by your bootstraps does not work due to the class system our society has formed. The classification about what makes you a boy and what makes you a girl was never seen problematic to me until we introduced the normative narrative of gender binary. After having discussions with my classmates and listening to Laura Budd give her personal experience of disrupting the gender binary, I have now come to the realization that only having two categories for an individual to fall under makes it very hard for someone who feels they do not fit within those specific categories. I also understand if someone does fit into those categories, they are instantly told they have to be and how they are supposed to act. This makes it extremely hard to allow individuals to be individuals in society. I now understand the importance of disrupting the gender binary. We, as future educators, need to recognize the diversity of our students and do all that we can to help them with their individual needs and wants. Before this class, I never thought about how disability is a problematic word. I now understand that using the term disability allows people to understand that ability is the norm in society, making people with varying abilities feel like outcasts over something they had no control over. Megan Baumgart is a young woman with Down syndrome. She speaks about her accomplishments and notifies teachers to not limit her in her abilities. I now also understand that disability simulations in no way helps a person completely understand what someone with varying ability goes through each day. We cannot assume that we understand because we will never understand until it happens to us personally. This course has allowed me to discuss topics confidently and competently without feeling uncomfortable. The biggest realization I have made throughout my journey is that you cannot assume anything about anyone else. We are all individuals with different needs and interests, and everyone has their own rights to be individual they wish to be. And that is my staircase of knowledge.